Hey, good morning, and welcome to the Comics Experience Graphic Novel of the Month Club, the Kids Edition, the best edition, because kids, you're the future. Let me tell you that. We've got a really good book this month. I think you're going to really like it. It is Buckle Up, and we are very happy to have the author with us right here, Lawrence Lindell. Hello, Lawrence.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's a nice foggy day here at least on our side of the bay. So I'm really glad it appears to have stopped the Blue Angels yesterday. So anyway, I'm being silly. Hey, so welcome to the club. This is a really good book, man, and I'm very happy to talk to you about it. The first question I ask, it's always the same on every show, and it is thus: why comics? Of all the ways you could be trying to express yourself, what is it about comics that speaks to you, that thrills you, that fills your heart with joy? Comics is not an easy mistress, particularly, and so yeah, I'd love to hear why.
Yeah. I just love them. I started reading comics when I was 12, and it still amazes me what you can do with comics. I make music, I do other things, but it's not the same as making like a graphic novel, a mini comic. Um, the thought process is completely different than anything else I make. If that makes sense, and it's kind of cathartic in a way of starting a project and then seeing it through finish. It feels gratifying with comics.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like other things feel gratifying, but not like this. Like it's a very different type of mindset to create a comic.
Yeah. How long did it take you to do Buckle Up, kind of from start to finish?
I think I started in 2021 and I finished in 2023, but that was because of like life stuff. Like a lot was happening. We're still in San Francisco, and we had that flood that year with all the water, and so
Yeah.
that happened, and then stuff with trying to conceive and have babies. So it was like a lot of life things that had to do with how long it took me to make, as opposed to how long it needed me to work on it. If that makes sense, but yeah.
Yeah. The actual execution, was it faster than, or so the conception and life are one part, but the work. What I'm trying to get to is to do a, what do you got here, 230-page book? That's a pretty big book. How like the physicality of doing it?
Yeah.
How long did that?
It took a while. I was drawing it in 2021. Then 2022, I had to go back and redo all the seat belts because I was just drawing, so I wasn't thinking about the safety precautions for kids and stuff. So there's so many scenes where the seatbelt is under the arm, and I had to go back and redraw every seatbelt. And then at the end, I went back and redid some of the art because I got in my head that because it was with Random House that I needed to stick to a kind of sterile and clean style.
Right.
And so I didn't have a lot of expressions and a lot of like cartoony stuff, which is what even in my adult work I do, because that's what I like. And so I don't know. I convinced myself that it would be too kiddie, even though it's a graphic novel for kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to go back and do all that stuff. So it took me maybe like a year and a half.
How does that compare to when you're doing adult graphic novels? Was it considerably more, about the same?
It was more. So I have another book with Drawn and Quarterly. I think I did that in the drawing part in 4 months. So to be fair, I have certain mental health stuff that provides me with extra charisma, if you will, or makes me work in a certain way. So it's not because I just rush through it, but it's my mind moves very fast no matter what. It's just not going to slow down. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if it wasn't for all the things happening with life, it wouldn't have taken me that long to draw. Because I just normally work fast no matter what I'm working.
Yeah, well, you know, life is more important than comics in a lot of cases, and it's good that you got to take care of that first. It's an interesting book because so much of it takes place in just a two shot, more or less, or you know, or cutting back and forth in the staticness of the car. Was that a challenge for you to figure out how to do that and keep it moving?
Yeah, it was a challenge, not just to keep it moving, but to know that. So I've been studying art since I was in high school. I did art academy. I did the art school thing twice. So to have all these skills and then minimize it is hard because there's that ego part of me that's like, okay, well, you know that you could change the composition and the perspective, and it would be this brilliant panel that people might talk about. But can I stick to my original idea of this kid is stuck in the car with his dad, and that's what I want you to feel like, just stuck. Like there's no extra nothing. It's just like you, your dad, in the car, and what that actually feels like. And so that was challenging because even now I look at it and be like, I could add more in that panel. It's like, but it didn't call for me to add more in that panel.
Right.
And sticking to that is kind of hard for me as an artist because well, I want to flex my art skills, but it's like, well, it didn't really serve the story, so do I have to put it in there? That's the brilliant thing about comics is like you don't have to put anything that's not necessary for it to read. Hopefully, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, in fact, very much so. I think that comics are, you know, are largely a process of reduction, of getting things down and simple and as clear and specific as you can. So yeah, absolutely. What was your well, actually, let's try that a different way. Where did the idea for the book come from?
Yeah. So I was in the MFA program at CCA for comics, and one of my senior theses was a autobiocomic called Both, and it featured a chapter called Car Ride, and it was about my dad and I on the weekends and how he would kind of trap me in the car and then have all these big conversations with me because I couldn't really go anywhere. Um, and that was the initial pitch and idea when I was asked to pitch to Random House. And they were like, "Well, can you make it for kids?" And I was like, "I don't know." Because the original one's very adult, even though I'm the kid in the story. So, and I was like, "Well, I'll give it a try." And buckle up. That's all it came about.
Yeah, yeah. What was your process of like did you do a full script for it? Was it just a synopsis? Like what was your mechanical process?
Yes, I do a script. I don't script at all. Like I just usually do. I don't even do thumbnails. I just do rough draft pages on the
Yeah.
iPad. But again, because it was Random House, I was like, oh, I got to send in the script. And I sent in the script, and my editor didn't tell me. But once I sent in the rough draft of the book, she was like, oh, I didn't want to say anything, but I was scared you weren't going to be able to fill out the book based on the script. And then when I sent in like how I actually draw and write books, she was like, this makes so much more sense. And I was like, well, I should have just stuck with what I knew instead of trying to like, like I don't know. It was I've been self-publishing for like a decade, so it's like this is very different. And so I was like, well, they need a script. I gotta send the script, and it didn't work out. So usually I just rough draft out every page and then I put it in a PDF and send it over.
Yeah. So then if I'm hearing you right, you're saying that they didn't even ask you for a script. You just had it in your head. Oh, it's a big publisher. I got to do it this way. I see. I see. That's kind of funny, actually.
Yeah, it feels. I don't know. It was just I don't. I had never worked with a publisher outside of myself, or like my spouse and I do like we self-publish stuff. So I was like, well, everybody else seems to send in scripts, so maybe they'll be expecting a script. And I kind of wish I trusted myself to just be like, hey, this is how I work. Can we work with this? And yeah, it turns out my editor was like, yeah, I prefer this. This makes more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, you didn't ask even ahead of time. Like, do you guys need? That's so funny.
I just sent out a synopsis and a breakdown, and then I was like, well, script so you can see what I'm talking about. And I was like, well,
Right.
yeah, it just didn't make sense. But again, in my mind, I was like, there's random house. I got to do it a certain way. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you did, for example, when you did Blackward, which was with D&Q, right, Drawn and
Mhm.
Quarterly, did you just send them the thumbnails, or did they, because it's Drawn and Quarterly was just like, whatever you want to do, just do the comic and send it to us.
Yeah, no. So I did Buckle Up first, and then I did Blackwood. And I just worked the way I work. My editor there, I sent the way I would have normally worked, and they're like, "Yeah, this is great. Let's just do it like this. We don't want to change your process."
Sure.
And it's funny. Random House, like they didn't expect me to change my process. I just thought like, "Oh, it's Random House." Yeah.
Yeah. No, I find that interesting. Because in my head at least, I would think that when you start a new relationship with a new publisher, that there would be a phone call or something, or just like, hey, this is what we expect, and you go, oh, but I can't, I work this way, or I don't know, just that you kind of jumped into it is pretty interesting.
Yeah, we had meetings and stuff, but again, I was like, I'll send over like I suggested that I send over a script thinking that's what they want instead of just being like, oh, here's how it works. Is that fine? And yeah. It was a weird process. It was a weird time too. It was 2021, so we're coming right out of lockdown.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. No. Everybody's head was a little off. Yeah. Once the editors saw your thumbnails and breakdowns, you said that they got the book. Then at that point, was there any kind of real editorial process at that point, or were they like, no, this is great, we're just going to go with it the way that it is?
Yeah, it was more like take this out, fix this spelling, move this panel, things like that. Like we don't need this here. It wasn't like don't do that. Like they let me kind of experiment, which is like
Yeah.
that's why I like to do my work. Like there's an assumption that because it's so simple and minimal that there's no thought that went into it. And it's like, no, that's the furthest from the truth. But I'm glad they let me experiment. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't, but that's the point of making comics, to kind of push it and see
Sure.
what you can do, and then
No, absolutely. I would never think that just because a style is simple that there's no work in it. I mean, obviously there's a lot of work and a lot of thought and a lot of a lot of brain power that goes into figuring it out. There's a good number of kind of bigger topics here in the book, like how as a Black person you deal with racism and things like that. Was that a challenge for you to do those topics in a way that was right for kids, or was it or as an adult, were you thinking about your own child and having to have those conversations in the future? Does that make sense as a question? I don't know if I phrased that right.
yeah, neither. I literally was like, how was it for me and my dad? And then I was like, well, I'll just put it in the we did have a conversation because the original had more raunchy language. My dad was like, well, you can't do that because it's middle grade. But other than that, I was like, kids, we don't give kids enough credit, like, for the things they go through and what they experience. So it's like I don't think I had to I don't think I had to put it in a way that kids understand, because kids definitely understand. I just wrote it. I tried to imagine if it were me again, like in that voice, if that makes sense. Like it was just more of a, this is what actually happened. Like I didn't make anything up in terms of like the subject matter. Like the story is fictional, but
Yeah.
subject matter, I was like, well, let me just pull from what actually happened on those car rides and go from there.
Yeah. Do you remember how you felt about those conversations when you were a kid? Like, did you understand why your dad was having them with you, or was it, or was that a little beyond you at that point?
It was like a mix. It was more of like, oh, I see what you're doing. Why do you have to do that right now? And also, I don't care. I just want to go home, even though like now I have two homes. Like it was like that type of thing where it's like I understand, but I don't understand like fully from the perspective of an adult. But for a kid, I'm like, I know what you're doing. We're in the car. You want to talk to me, but really, like, yeah. So I tried to put that in the book for the inner voice of Lonnie. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't care. Or I'm tired, or I don't want to say what I really feel, type of thing.
Yeah. So you said that that most of these conversations you had with your dad. Um, is it as autobiographical in that your parents were divorcing as well, or okay?
Yeah. So yeah, my parents divorced. Yeah, it's like based off of me, and then that's where it stops. So the dad is actually nothing like how my dad is.
Right.
The mom, the sister, all those. But yeah, that's pretty much me. I was a kid of divorce, and driving back to my mom's house from my dad's house, he would fill that time with like, trying to, get as much time as he could.
Yeah. No, my parents divorced as well when I was fairly young, but they quickly went to different coasts, so I didn't have that sort of experience of dealing with the other parent, um, uh, and trying to understand that. It was really hard to understand why divorces happen, and how you're not responsible as the child. And that's one of the things that comes up here. I mean, there's a good amount of anger in the book, yeah, and I like the fact that you showed that you didn't shy away from that, from those really real emotions, because a lot of the kids books that come out kind of dance around the actual feelings that kids have.
Yeah, but it's like how can you? Like, just speaking for me personally, it's like I was an angry kid. I can't make the kid not angry because it's for kids. Like kids are angry all the time. They don't understand what's going on. Everything's new for them. So yeah, I try to put that was the dilemma of choosing a more minimal style. It's like, will it be ignored the emotion because it's so cartoony? Like that was my thought. Like, it's like, do I really need to actually change it and just stick with
Yeah.
traditional illustration style?
Yeah, no, I thought it was a very effective technique to to have the emotions like be their own color. Red when he's angry, blue when he's sad, and yeah, I think it worked. I think it worked really well. Was it a challenge for you to figure out how the color worked with that?
Yeah, no, color is like the biggest part of the storytelling in the whole entire book. Um, Beyond just the like Lonnie's inner voice, like you notice there's not a lot of backgrounds, but
Yeah.
when there is, it's color or it's completely white, and the white is supposed to represent like that
Mhm.
void and like just being stuck and there's nothing else. Um, and there's variation. When should I share the slide?
Oh yeah, we
Oh,
can do that. Yeah, just there's a little button at the bottom that you can share your screen, and then we'll add it in. Should be
see, I
down
have
towards the bottom of the screen. Present, I'm told it says.
uh, but yeah, color is like a big part of um, everything for the book because I was like, well, if it has to be in color, then I want to use color functional purpose, I guess, if you will,
Yeah.
and not just aesthetic. I'm still not sure if that was the right choice, but I just saw it through. Just went with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I say, I think it was the right choice. I think it was very effective, and I think it really makes the emotion stand out that much more because of the use of color with it. Yeah, that's what I thought at least. So you're not getting it, not figuring out how to get it started.
That's I think I just did it. Ah, well, yeah, it's not. It's okay, but
Okay,
so
no
yeah,
problems, man.
like the color, even in certain pages, you'll notice like there's a variation of color. So when Lonnie's dad is angry, it starts off not as saturated, and then by the time it gets to the third panel, it's very saturated. So it's like I don't know if people will know that means something or if they'll even care, but it's like little things that are thought out. Like even the beginning of the book, the background's purple. It's not just randomly purple. It's because you mix the colors together. So he's a bit of angry and sad, and then confused. And so it's like just little things where it's like,
Yeah. No,
yeah,
I mean now that you pointed out, I'm actually I do notice it, and it is clear. I don't know that I would have necessarily picked that up ahead of time, right?
yeah,
Because it's a little subtle, but subtle is good, man. I mean, I like that. Yeah, I like that. So you're you said you've been reading comics since you were a kid. Well, since I guess Lonnie's age here. And there's even a scene where you go to the comic shop. Um, was that was that here in the Bay Area?
Now I'm from Southern California, LA. Yeah, so yeah, no, I went to yeah, my dad used to take me to the Shrine Center in Los Angeles. But there used to be a comic convention on the weekend, and I would spend weekends on that. So he would take me to that.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Um, what are your early memories of going into a comic shop?
Not being able to afford the stuff on the shelf,
Yeah, I
and
hear that.
then getting to the 25-cent box. So I grew up reading a lot of like old Image comics, like Bloodstrike and New Man, that type of thing. Like that's it's ironic the comics I make now versus what I still read and what I grew up on even resembles that. But yeah, a lot of a lot of that, like Savage Dragon and that type of thing.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because all of that Image material is all very action and like gritted teeth and shoulder pads and aggression. And your comics are a lot more cerebral. Both in your adult comics and in this one. What do you? I don't want to say what do you attribute that to because that's a kind of a weird question. But what do you think? Why do you think that you're not making comics that are closer to what you read when you were a kid?
Uh, I think. Well, I also grew up on like a cartoon, so I went to undergrad. I studied 2D animation, still a lot of things influences me. But I don't know. I think I would often think of like I read a lot of things I enjoy that I would never make. If that makes sense, like it just doesn't click for me in that way. Like reading it, it clicks, but then when I go to draw, I'm like, I don't know if I understand. Like I don't. It just doesn't work for me. Like I would love to make one of those comics. Just try it out, but it just doesn't click for me. Like the Hulk is my favorite character. I would love to do like a one-shot Hulk comic. But I don't know how to translate what I do to that.
Yeah. Well, that makes me think of I don't know if you ever saw it. James Cholkaka did a Hulk comic. It was not a full comic. It was like I think it was like 6 pages in the back of something, and it was all. And I still remember. I mean, like vividly, I remember this. It's all Hulk being mad at the rain. Like the rain is hitting him, and he's like, "Oh, rain! Oh!" You know? Kind of like the perfect kind of Hulk comic for his individual artist style. So I'm sure that there's, I'm sure you can come up with something that's, as it were in your idiom of telling stories to do that kind of a thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been trying to figure it out. I have sketchbooks full of just stuff like that. And this is where can it work, and then go back to work.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you work physically or do you work digitally?
Both. That one was drawn all on the iPad, but for me, it's no difference. The way I draw, like the way I ink, it's the same iPad versus traditional. But that one was done all on the iPad just because of the flood and things like that. So.
Yeah. Is it? You say there's no difference in the way you work, which I understand. Is there a difference in sort of time in the execution or conception?
No, not really. Like same amount of time. I think it's because of I was doing 2D animation, so you get used to doing your sketches and then scanning them and doing them on like the Cintiq. So I think because of that, like that's how it would work. Even if I did it traditional, it would still be inked digitally for animation. So I think that translates to comics. Like it's the same amount of time.
Yeah. Now, did you think at some point that you were going to go into animation, that was going to be what you were going to do? Yeah.
Yeah. I always make comics. I'm always gonna make comics. Even when I was doing animation, I was doing self-publishing, making comics. But I was gearing for a career in television animation. Then some mental stuff happened, and that kind of went out the window. Yeah, ironically, that's the subject of my next book, The Be Accused. Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, I was interning at a place called 6 Point Harness. It's in Hollywood, and I was working on a few shows here. And, yeah, mental health got in the way, and then that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it that made you sort of make the pivot from animation to doing comics full time? Because I'm assuming that you do comics full time.
Yeah. I always wanted to do comics. I was told you'll never make money when I was in school. Like you need to get something to make money. Animation they get paid, but it's still a problem with money. So it's the jokes on me, I guess. But after all the stuff happened, I kind of gave up on art and was like, well, I'll just work my regular job. I was a campus aide at a school, and then I was like, this is what I'm just gonna do until I move up and make money somewhere else. And then I returned to comics through Zine, the Zine Fest. And I was like, well, I'll give it another shot. And I just kept at it. And yeah, I came back to it. Like it just naturally, I came back to it. I hadn't planned to come back to comics, but it was just like this is what I've been doing this since I was 12. Like the love for this, like it's just not gonna go away, type of thing. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You said you went to CCA. Did you go to CCA? Like where was it relative to you starting to get published by Drawn Accordingly, let's say?
yeah. So comics, I was self-publishing. I said I would never do like any type of traditional industry stuff. I was gonna keep it DIY only. My spouse was at the grad program, and we were both teachers. So I was teaching comics in the city to elementary school kids, and so green up. And then I saw how her mentors were with her at CCA, and I really liked that as opposed to the college experience I had. Oh well, I'm interested in teaching higher education. I know you need an MFA for that. It seems like a good program. Let me see what they offer, since a lot of the teachers are specialized in education as well. Went there, and I was still like being cute and coming to way after everything, because I promised I was just like, I'm not doing any industry stuff. I'm just gonna make comic book stuff on my own. And then I met them in 2018 at SPF, I think. And I was like, oh, I think I could pitch to someone. Like I think I feel okay. Like after meeting certain people, it's like everyone's not what I thought. Yeah, so that came way later. And then by the time I graduated, I had the deal with Random House already, and then D&Q came a year later.
Oh, okay, interesting. That's a interesting kind of sideways way of doing that. Now that you've worked with a big house and a small house, D&Q versus PRH could not be more different worlds, right? Drawn Accordingly, I think there's like 4 people total in the company, and God, Random House has thousands and thousands and thousands of employees, doing stuff. Do you feel that one way or the other is more suitable for how you like to work?
No, I think it's based on like people type of thing. Like I'm not so Random House came randomly, no pun intended. Like they through SPX. I met Calvin Reed during panel I was doing, and then he was the one that reached out to Gina when she was still running. Perfect. It's like, you need to check this kid out. Kid 36, but you need to check this kid out. He's up next. Like, these fresh ideas. And then she reached out during the pandemic, and I liked her, and I liked Calvin, and so I felt enough trust. Like that's how I do it. Okay, I can kind of trust these people. I don't think about company, if that makes sense. Like,
Sure.
yeah, it's more of like, I love working with my editor at Drawn Accordingly. So if we work together again, it's like, yes, this is my person. Like that's how I am very much. Like when I do stuff for the New Yorker, I really like Emma. I'm like, this is my person. So that's how I kind of pick through.
Yeah, that's a great way to be able to have, to be able to work, is to be able to work with people who you enjoy working with,
Yeah, it doesn't always, I know it doesn't, like for everyone, it's not like that. So I'm just like, as many problems I have with comic industry, people that I get to work with, but I cherish that in people. But there's some horror stories. This, yeah. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I just think it's great that you've been able to go from book to book to book to book, and you're growing your audience, and you're growing the number of publishers that want to work with you. I mean, that I think is is kind of the best sign that the things that you're doing are interesting and good and valid, right? Because people want to work with you.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I'm always like telling myself, like, I don't know if they really want to work with me. I'm a very particular kind of person, but it seems to work out. It seems fine, but it's more of like, yeah, I'm almost like, I'm kind of weird, so I don't know if they like really like working with me or if it's just the comics are resonating with people.
Right, but I mean, aren't those the same thing at the end of the day, right? Like the comics aren't going to resonate if they don't like working with you,
Yeah, that's true.
you know, and presumably, like how you were describing, you know, the editorial process at Random House, like they made your comics better then, right? So yeah, that sounds like the best of all possible worlds there.
Yeah, like I will keep doing it for as long as people, you know. I'm always gonna make comics even if I do on my own, but as long as I can find people that like working with me and like working with them, and it makes sense. I'm open to it now. Before I wasn't. I don't think I was ready for that. The
Yeah.
trust, the level of trust with creating something.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, comics have to be a thing of trust, right? Like because you as a cartoonist, you know, essentially lock yourself away for 6 months to a year, and then you hand them a whole manuscript, like, you know, and not just a whole manuscript, but a manuscript that it, like, you can't really mess with it too much once, otherwise you have to redraw the whole thing, right? Like, you know, I always find comics to be such a fascinating thing in that, you know, it's a little different than a prose novel, right? Like if someone goes, oh, well, this chapter isn't working, you need to rewrite this chapter. Rewriting a chapter isn't really that hard, but if you redo a comic, you often have to redo the entire book, not just that one little section, right? Because each thing follows each other part.
Yep, like the seatbelts.
Like the seatbelts, yeah, yeah. Well, especially on a book called Buckled Up, right? Like you got to get the seatbelts right on. The the title has, you know, a nice dual meaning there. Was that, obviously that was intentional, but where did the title come in the process? Like, did you know that that's what the title was?
No, every title I always pick, every publisher's like, yeah, we gotta do something. Like I wanted to call it classroom car or car classroom because they're like, well, that might pigeonhole it to being like specifically just for the classroom, so we don't want to call that. So then I just came up with a list of names and then I added like buckle up, we like that one. Okay, yeah, it's more like organic. A lot of things I do happen organically. Like there are things that I didn't expect. Like I wasn't thinking Buffalo was gonna be like the one to pick. I was just like, oh, here's some ideas for something, and it just matched up perfectly.
Yeah, well, this is one of the big strengths of comics, I think, is the different ways that people can work. Because, you know, certainly I have spoken to many cartoonists who are extraordinarily anal and extraordinarily focused and extraordinarily, like, they spend all of their time almost like building it in advance, you know, before they even start drawing a single line. And then there are other people who just start, they just got to get it out, you know, like getting it out is the important part, you know. And it sounds to me like on your end, getting it out is just as is the more important part.
Yeah, I planned it, but then it's like, all right, how much do you stick to the plan if you know the plan is not working? Or how could I possibly plan for the way I use color in the book is like I have an idea, but until I see it, I don't like. There's some stuff like in theory in my head, it's like, oh, this makes perfect sense. And I play it, it's like it makes no sense at all. It just doesn't work. So it's like a combination of both because I don't know. It's hard to stick to the script if the script starts like the story will change and the characters will start changing the story. Like, oh, Lonnie wouldn't do that, so I know that's how I had it written, but it's not. You have to change.
Well, this is kind of why I was asking earlier about like how much of it is actually autobiography and how much of it is actually fiction, right? Because, you know, if it's autobiography, then it needs to. So I guess then the question is how different is Lonnie from you?
Um, Pretty different. I mean, yeah, obviously, I do a lot of autobio stuff, like my mini comics and stuff. Published with it's a lot of autobio, mental health, things like that. So doing fiction, I did have trouble being like, well, that's not how it happened. And I was like, well, what did happen in a way with fiction, and I'm writing it now. It's not actually me. Like it's based off, but it's not. Um, but it's pretty close. A lot of the like, I was never the type of kid to express like how I felt to my dad. Things worse or whatever stuff like that. That's pretty accurate.
Yeah. Now that you've got a fiction book under your belt, do you like which do you enjoy better, the autobiography or the fiction, or is it the same to you?
Same to me. So like I'm more of like that kind of person that's like comics is comic type of person. I read a lot of different comics. So I want to make a lot of different fiction, autobiography, the stuff I do with the New Yorker, nothing these comics. So I want to, like I said, I want to do a whole comic. I want to be one of those cartoonists that was able to work in all the different areas that I ever dreamed of working. Yeah, so fiction, autobiography, cartoons. Like I love comics, so it's like, and I'm an artist. Why not try them all?
Yeah. When you got the contract with Penguin to do a kids book, because as you said, you mostly do adult work. Did you, I don't know, like go out and buy a bunch of kids graphic novels to see how they were, or did you just trust yourself that you'd be able to sort of switch milieus, as it were?
Yeah, no. When I'm working on something, I just do it. But I do read a lot of. That's what I mean by comics. Comics, like there's so much good stuff in children's graphic.
Yeah.
Like cartoonists are playing around. Like I said, I used to teach comics to kids in the city, so I would always buy these kind of like middle grade and see, So I have experience with what kids like.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that plays into how I made the book, which is the benefit of how it worked, but also like the detriment. Some things I could change to please the audience, but then I get stubborn. And, well, no, I just want to stick and see like my own artistic vision included, and then see if I can get people to like create a language and then see if I can get people to learn that language and then buy into. Oh, this is the language that's being spoken in the book, not what my interpretation of it. Yeah, that's it. But sometimes I'm like, I could change it up. I could do some more colors, but I don't know. I really wanted to try to see if I can make every color have a purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things I find with a lot of kids books are that they're trying to be performative more than maybe honest, or maybe the honesty is in that performance, but it's almost like oh, I've got to check these particular boxes because that's what I think that a kid's book is. And that was what I very much liked about Buckle Up, was that I didn't really feel like there was any box checking going on. I felt like it was just a very honest story. And it felt really real and really sincere,
Yeah, that's the hope of making work. It's like I don't think I'm clever enough to trick you, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah.
So I'm not gonna try to trick you. I'm just gonna be like, okay, I'm Lawrence Lindell. This is how I work. If you like it, fantastic. If you don't, no hard feelings.
Yeah.
Put it down. That's generally how I try to work with all my stuff is like, whoever it's for, hopefully it'll be able to get to who it's for, and who it's not, and that's okay. Like I don't need everybody. If it's trying to get it to the people that maybe it will help or maybe bring some joy. Even just things of like, oh, I didn't know you could do color like that in a graphic novel. Because a lot of people think graphic novel means something that it doesn't to me. They think it's like, oh, it has to be this beautiful background. And that's not me saying that if you draw a beautiful background, it's not great, but that's not comics per se, if you will. Like it doesn't. I love comics because of what you can do with them. It's almost anything. And so, yeah, I try not to bring anything to my work that's not real to me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it comes across, man. It really does. You know, as I said, I thought that this really stood out in a way that, you know, a lot of other kids comics don't, you know, because it, again, it felt very, very, very real. And it felt very honest, and it felt very raw, you know, which is, again, not something that you often really get in kids comics, right? Like there's kind of some sort of distancing, you know, that people do, where they're kind of holding the emotions at arm's length, you know, even though kids are nothing but emotion, you know, because they haven't yet figured out the intellectual part of it, you know. So good on you is what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to say, man. The lettering is all font, obviously. Do you was that a choice of yours to do it that way, or?
Yeah, that's my only font, and like, Peach Balloon and Dollars is a very big part of my cartoon style. But I understand that it's not always legible for young readers, and so that is why.
All right.
I went to hand letter, but my hand lettering isn't perfect, and so yeah, I wanted it to be clear for readers. So
yeah,
we went through a bunch of different fonts, and that was the one that we decided was the best. But if I had my choice, I would have hand lettered.
Yeah, I don't think hand lettering has to be perfect, you know. Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's interesting because, you know, there's sometimes there's a distance, you know, that happens when it's not hand lettered, because, you know, because the balloon shapes are all the same, or the distance is all the same. It's one of the things I like about hand lettering is how it's just an organic part of the art, you know. But that wasn't a decision that, say, Penguin Random House said that you had to do. That was your own call.
No, yeah, this was. They said I had to pick a font. Yeah.
Okay.
So I wanted to hand letter.
I see. Okay.
The test I turned in, I hand lettered, and they're like, "Hey, it's for younger readers. It needs to be like legible as possible."
Right.
So,
you've got at least a little tiny bit of hand lettering in here. The few sound effects.
Yeah, things. Yeah, a little bit, but it's just like, yeah, I really wanted to. Yeah, I wanted to hand letter for sure.
Yeah. Well, as I say, it's a really powerful book. Have you like gone on tour or anything for the book? Have you been like meeting with kids or no?
No. Yeah, it's been hectic. Like we've been moving, and it's just a lot going on.
Yeah.
I'll be in Berkeley next month for the Comic-Con at the library. So
yeah.
There'll be some stuff later. I haven't been on tour for that.
Yeah. I'd be very interested to hear what kids all around the country, you know, think about it. We sent it out to our kids club. I still haven't really heard back from many kids because we moved this forward a week. Usually I have another week to be able to talk to the kids about, you know, how they liked it or not. But the initial response seemed pretty good. I'm very curious though to how the kids go with kind of the deeper themes and the more adult portions of the book. But kids can absolutely handle. Well, we were saying this before. Kids are emotions, so they can handle big emotions. They can handle big thoughts. You can trust kids, and you just had one of your own, so you'll find out pretty soon.
Yeah, she's 2, so right now it's like
Right. Yeah.
She likes comics though.
Well, that's nice. Oh, that's really good. That's really good. Yeah. No, wait till he gets, like kind of 6 or 7. That's kind of the age I really like, when they're still little kids, but they're able to communicate themselves to you properly. They really tell you what they're thinking, and not just what they're feeling, because there's a difference between those two things. What else are you working on right
now? I already finished the next book for John and Courtney, so that comes out next year. Some stuff for the New Yorker. I do quite a bit. It's a different kind of book.
That's pretty great that you're already a full book ahead, though.
I try to plan out a book a year.
Yeah.
But sometimes it doesn't work out because
life gets in the way sometimes.
And the industry is I think my brain is too fast. You know what I mean? Like in my head, I'm like, I'm ready to go to the next thing. Like, hold on. Like, there's a lot of things that need to be checked off the box, and I'm already like, whoa, I just finished this one, so let me go to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, if you've already got the next book completed, are you thinking about the book after that already?
Yeah, so when Buckle Up was done, I was working on Blackwood. When Blackwood was done, I was working on We All Got Something, which is the next one for D&Q. And when that one was done, I picked this other one that I can't talk about to another place. So I planned a book ahead of time, and if they're interested or if I do well, that's how I see it. Like a book a year, it's reasonable for me. Like I can't say it for anybody else, but for me, it's like the way I work is reasonable.
Yeah. No, that's great, and it's great that you're finding homes for books like that as well. I mean, I just again talked to a lot of cartoonists who they do the book, they put in their 2 years, and then it takes them 3 years to gestate the next one. To be able to just like keep moving like that is it's a pretty good skill in the world of comics to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I want everybody to know it's not like a normal skill set, or it's not like I'm not rushing through it, and it's also not normal. It came out of a traumatic place that I've turned into like an advantage, if you will.
Yeah.
So I just work that way now.
Yeah. I'm assuming that your next book at D&Q is an adult aimed book.
Like super adult. Like Blackbird could be teen, but the next one is like it's adult.
Yeah. Do you want to work on more middle grade stuff, or like how does that feel to you?
I do, but then I don't. Yeah, I have another one, a follow up to this one. If Random House is into it, like we talk about it, we've been talking about it, but it's like I don't know if I could do another middle grade, and I don't know if I want to do another 200 plus page. Yeah, and then I'm like, oh, I have this idea. What do you think? And they're like, this is a great middle grade book, and so like I like it, but I don't want to be the middle grade person. If that makes sense. Like,
sure.
Like I said, I do comics everywhere, and I just want to be known as a person.
Sure.
Not like work that I like to make, so I don't want to be like why author middle grade.
Yeah.
I just want to count.
Yeah, no. I mean that makes a lot of sense, and I think this is a really good example of it. You're not. It is a middle grade book, but it doesn't feel like an obviously middle grade book, if you know what I mean. Like it's perfectly suitable for kids. It's even got themes that, like, if you told someone in advance, they may be like, well, I don't know if that's good. Maybe you shouldn't do that for kids, but it clearly works that way. And again, like, dealing with topics like divorce, I really think are really, really, really important to have fiction out there so that kids can see themselves. More kids go through divorces than a lot of other things that comics are about, and I don't think that there's any need to shy away from those kind of topics just because they're not traditionally children's topics, so I really applaud that, and I really applaud that sensitivity of how you worked through this and you made it happen, I don't know. That's all I can say is nice things, Lawrence. I love your work, and I love what you're doing here, and I want to see more all the time. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've gone through most of my questions. How about this? Is there anything that you would like to be asked about the book that I didn't ask?
No, I think I don't know. I like the question. I don't think that's my one thing. I never like talking about my work. Not because I can't, but because, like I said, once I'm done, I try to move on. Because if I get stuck on this one, I'll start going back in and being like,
sure,
shit, oh man, yeah. So I try to like let people enjoy or hate or whatever you want to do with the work, and let that just be like, buckle up is now, just buckle up, and I'm ready to just make the next thing for y'all. And so I'm more curious, like, I don't care what people think about it in terms of like for my own justification, but I hope it's used mostly in classrooms, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Because I feel like that's a better opportunity to explore these topics than maybe at home. I know, at least for me, it was.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the reasons why I was asking if you had done any touring or anything like that, or if any educators had reached out, or if Random House had tried to place you into schools, because I think you're right. I think that this is a very valuable thing to talk about in a classroom setting, and to let kids know that it's okay for them to have big feelings about things that happen here, and to understand their peers around them, to understand that families are different, because that, I think, is kind of learning that that empathy, for your fellow man is kind of the biggest part of growing up, and I think a book like this can really help. So let's hope you get lots of invitations into schools and stuff. I would think a number of the school districts would love to have you in and talk to you, have you talk to the kids about the work too.
Yeah, I'm open to it. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, then, so my last question, much like the first, is the same in every interview, and it is thus that I talk to a lot of cartoonists. We're almost 10 years of this. We're doing 2 interviews a month, so that's a lot of interviews. And so I hear from a lot of people who are who want to make comics, but they're unsure of themselves. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to do it. They don't think they're good enough, they're worried that, they have to be a better artist, for example, or more focused as a writer or whatever. So if you, were talking to a young person who in their head wants to make comics, but hasn't gotten out of their head to be able to do it yet, what might the piece of advice that you give them be? And that could be something practical and physical. That could be something emotional. That could be something spiritual. But what might your advice be?
Yeah, a lot of people don't like when I say, but anyone can make comics. I don't believe that it's like, as special as it is, I don't believe it's just reserved for the best artists. Like, there's a lot of talented artists who aren't great at storytelling. And that's in fact why they probably work with writers who are good at storytelling and they work together. But in order to tell a compelling and good story, you don't have to be the best drafts person. But if you want to be the best drafts person, then you put your effort into learning the skills needed to do that. But that doesn't necessarily, there's more than one way to make a comic. And silly pictures are just fine for comics. So I would say just start. I'm here. You can read Buckle Up. In comparison to my other work, the artwork is not like, ooh, stunning, but it's part of the story. I'm sticking with that story. And it's a book that's in a comic book story. You can do that too. Like, it sounds like, what are you talking about? But really, you could do that too. I'm a very big believer. You could do anything I've done. Yeah, if that makes sense. I ramble a lot, but you just have to learn what it is you want to do and then put your effort towards that. So if you don't plan to draw comics the way whoever draws comics, then that's fine. You don't have to draw like how I draw. You don't have to draw anything else. Draw. Find your voice, put it on the page, and put it out.
Yeah, very much so. And that was not rambling, by the way. That was, I thought, very, very on point, actually. Yeah. So, hells yeah. Well, good, man. Thank you for doing this, man. I mean, I know you didn't do it for me, but thank you for doing this. I very much like your work, as I said, and I very much like the emotional content of it, and I love the weight of what you do, and I think that just it's sometimes it's good to hear it, This is good stuff, man, and I I would love it if 20 years from now you've got 20 more books that have come out. And we have another conversation about another one of them,
Yeah, me too.
So, yeah.
Yeah, 20 more years, 20 more books.
Yeah. That's how you make a life in comics, man. Cool. All right. Well, hold on for a second. Let me do a little bit of house cleaning here to wrap the show up, and then I'll come back to you, Lawrence. Okay. Let's go back on a one to me. Hi there, you. How's everything going with you, man? I hope everything's going well with you. I hope if you're going through things that you look to the world of fiction around you, and you look to books like Buckle Up that talk about things that affect you and impact you, and you get some reading out of this. You will really like this book. Particularly if you're struggling. Well, you're not struggling. Well, you are struggling, but if your parents are divorcing and things like that, and you don't know how to deal with those emotions, I think a book like Buckle Up is really going to help you. So I thoroughly recommend this book to you. Sitting there at home, you can buy it from us. You can click somewhere here, but you can also absolutely get it from the library, or get it from your local store, whatever. But do go ahead and read a copy of Buckle Up. You're going to be very happy with that. I've got a couple of thank yous and stuff that I need to do for the show. I want to thank Jordan, my producer. You guys don't know him, but he does stuff that we wouldn't have shows if it wasn't for all of his backstage stuff. I want to thank Ben for running the show today, doing the cameras and making sure that everything works here in the studio. I want to thank my staff, Zoe, Kat, Katie, Max, and Chrissy, who all are so good at what they do, and they give me the freedom to sit here and talk to cartoonists about making cartoons, which is kind of the coolest thing in the world. I want to thank everybody who watches this show, particularly those of you who are members. You can hit that subscribe if you aren't already. And every 2 weeks there's a new show. I want to thank all the people who are members of the club, because without your membership, we wouldn't be able to do this. And kind of more than anything else, I want to thank all the cartoonists out there, especially people like Lawrence right there, because if you know, I keep saying this as though I'm saying something new, but if it wasn't for what you guys do, I would be sitting here in a store full of blank books, and nobody wants to be in a store full of blank paper. To have your thoughts and your emotions and your dreams put upon a page, it means so much. And so really, thank you for making comics, Lawrence. Truly.
Thank you for having me.
Oh man, it is my pleasure. The last thing I have to say is that in 2 weeks we're doing yet another club. It's the adult club. It's a kind of a spooky, scary book called Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. You kids can't read it, but your parents will love this comic. So look for that interview in 2 weeks. All right. Other than that, Lawrence, last time, thank you very much for being here. Put him back on the 2, will you? Just so I'm not talking to myself. There we go. Hi. Thank you, Lawrence. For spending the time with us this morning. I really, really appreciate it. And the next time you're over in the city, come over. I'd love to see you again. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, man. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Graphic Novel of the Month Club. If you enjoyed what you were watching, please subscribe and hit that bell up in the top corner. If you enjoyed the books that we're talking about and the creators that we're talking to, every month we pick a brand new book. The staff votes on it. It's a program that helps keep our store alive, and we'd love to have you as a member. You'll get a new book every month. Just follow that URL at the bottom of the screen.